from the Ukraine back to Latin America. Very special friend of ours from Brazil, Rosine Kadamani. She's doing the Blockchain Academy, so probably might be very interested in what she's doing in Brazil and outside of Brazil. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Thank you. Do you have the clicker?
I have the clicker.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's a great pleasure to be for the first time in Berlin as a speaker. We had to do some efforts to be here, so Oscar, thank you very much. Aaron, and thank you also, Rodolfo, you're there, who's the one that introduced me to this word in 2014 in Brazil, at the LabitConf in Brazil. So my talk will be about why governments and people should be involved with cryptocurrencies and blockchain. Of course, you are now much more familiar with all these concepts, so my purpose here will be more to organize your thoughts and make sure we're on the same page. All right, so that's here. I have a legal background. I worked for 13 years as a banking lawyer in Brazil at a very traditional law firm. And in 2014, I got interested into this matter of Bitcoin. At that time, we didn't talk about blockchain yet. And in 2016, I founded this educational project, which is the Blockchain Academy. We are a neutral and independent project. We're very proud to say that we had more than 3,000 people coming to our in-person courses in Brazil. So we trained lots of people that are now reproducing this information everywhere in Brazil. And in terms, my presentation will be also more textual. This is not how I usually do, but this is how I prefer to do here. So I need to assume that we are all now familiar with the concepts, basically. And we should also bear in mind that I'm not bringing you any truth. I'm not expecting to be the owner of the truth. I'm just bringing some information that I could aggregate in all these years of research in this matter. Oops, it shouldn't come all together, but anyway. First thing, when we talk about, well, not sure if I'll even take it away, so to make sure you listen to me instead of reading. Well, anyway, I hope you do that. So we have this concept, which is the nation. We talk about it so often, and the nation state. Where does this come from? Nation is this idea that people get together because they identify themselves culturally and because of the language, and several other specific matters that put us together for identification. State relates more to these rules that we are subject to. So when we put nation and state together, we get to nation state. This concept was created in the 17th century. It was artificially created after the 30 Years' War that Europe suffered. So the idea was, why don't we just convince people that we should be living in a peaceful manner if we just organize ourselves in different states and we put people subject to their specific rules. As now, I saw Aaron talking about microplaces, micro-states, but this was thought in the past also in the 17th century. So this is where this concept comes from. And of course, territory is key in this concept. So basically, nation-state is having these people together that identify themselves subject to specific rules and in a specific territory, all right? And in the 90s, when we saw this digital revolution ongoing and developing so quickly, we started seeing that these physical territories no longer make too much sense. We are all here somehow, we have the same age. So we saw this happening. And of course, the boundaries have changed a lot. They don't exist as they used to when we were younger. And when we talk about cryptocurrencies, we're talking about this new global expectation of currency, or currency, we could say so. I defend this idea that we have this global currency, which is the internet currency that Satoshi Nakamoto created. And this is another element to promote this potential demise of the nation state. So governments should be really aware of that. Here, I would also add some things. We are not all here talking, oh, I have these problems in Argentina and Brazil, in Ukraine, and wherever. The truth is, this is happening everywhere. We're all questioning the established modern system because it doesn't make sense anymore. We all share the same culture. We all have Spotify. We're all in Facebook, on LinkedIn. We all use Uber. So everything is changing and very quickly. Second point I would like to discuss about is this idea of empowerment of the individual. We heard so much about it here, and we hear so much about it so often. So I try to just organize the thoughts. In terms of privacy, of course, we all know that we are subject to this surveillance model. And it comes from the government, because the government allegedly wants to protect us from crimes, from terrorism. So we put this terrorists as the reason for all this surveillance, all right? I'm not an anarchist. I'm not someone that defends the state as it is. I try to be in the middle. I see myself in the middle, actually. And I would say that even though I recognize that the state should be or has a meaning has a reason to exist, it has failed so many times in doing it. We all know that in respect of money laundering, the main actors are the financial institutions, which are those that received power from the state to impose this surveillance on us. Separately, we have these giant tech companies, especially Google, Facebook. I'm reading this book, which is really, really, really cool, and I really recommend you to read, not sure if you know it, which is Future Crimes, written by Mark Goodman. He's an ex-FBI agent, ex-Interpol, and I'm still, in the beginning of the book, I read like 20%. Kindle told me so. And the idea is that, I mean, he puts all the details on how we are being surveilled now. Everything we do, every step we make is known by Google and by Facebook and by all this, and by our cell phones, by Apple. And this information is being sold to advertisers. I know there's new regulation coming, but as was said here also, once our information is available, we have no control on it, despite of the existing regulations. And this could be not only uncomfortable to know, but also very risky when it comes to political trends, political preferences, or to other types of nationalist protections and so on. It could be very, very risky for us as humans. I'm not really sure whether we could even get to a moment without all these risks anymore. But still, when we talk about cryptocurrencies, about enhancing privacy, financial privacy, of course, this brings us an alternative. So a light at the end of the tunnel, we say in Brazil. Not sure if you're also familiar with this concept. We should make people know that privacy is key, is really important, and should be defended. And also when we talk about blockchain IDs, so all these efforts to bring people to the control of their own information. I'm not sure where we will get with that, but this is an effort which is definitely worth it. Also, generally talking about the economic model, as it has been said here, and we could say again, the economics today, in the States, we have generally the central banks, which determine what should be the parameters of the economy. So, what's the macroeconomy, what's the microeconomy? So what should be done to avoid inflation, to have inflation? All these efforts to intervene in our financial operation, which is not natural, it's also artificial. And I'm not also blaming the states. This is the only model we know until now. When we talk about cryptocurrencies and new forms of exchanging value generally, we are having now alternatives that were not present before. I'm not saying they're the best model, but just having an alternative model is good enough by now and should be explored. We're talking about Venezuela. So many people talk about cryptocurrencies not having an intrinsic value. As you should probably know by now, fiat money doesn't also have any intrinsic value. And in certain cases, like for Venezuelan population, it makes much more sense to preserve the value of their funds by purchasing cryptocurrency rather than just staying with their own state money. When we talk about stable coins, we are now able to exchange value everywhere with the stability that is expected from fiat. Of course, I'm not endorsing nor questioning the business model of the stable coins, but it is an existing alternative as well, and could be for us an alternative to the established system. I'm going to be quicker now because time goes by so fast. In terms of financial exclusion, the researchers show us that at least 1/3 of the population is excluded from the existing financial system for any reason that we may talk about. When we talk about cryptocurrencies, it's a permissionless system. Everyone can be part of it, irrespective of your balance your money, the money you have, irrespective of your criminal history, irrespective of your thoughts. You can just be there. So it's very inclusive. And it all tends to be forever because now we know how to make it. We know how to create a cryptocurrency. And it's censorship resistant. Technically, we could argue, oh, it's based in the clouds, as we heard Alex saying yesterday. Anyway, we could say that, in theory, it's censorship resistant in the sense that irrespective of the state wanting us not to work with cryptocurrencies, which could be imposed and was imposed in the past, this kind of law could not be effective, may not be effective, because it depends only on having access to the internet to access this system. So it should be forever. Now, also talking about investment opportunities. Of course, it's not an investment advice, but there's this new market to be explored. We can now invest directly from everywhere, from anywhere in the world, directly into whatever we believe. Either cryptocurrencies or tokens, which of course should be questioned a lot. But we can do that. We have this freedom. Before cryptocurrencies, before tokens, we should always go through these intermediaries that could say, no, you're not allowed to invest here in the US, in China. But now tokens allow us to invest in anything because supposedly this represents any of these rights. Talking about business opportunities and generally and risks, what we call the blockchain technology, which is not, we should reinforce that. There is no concept for blockchain. Everything is an effort that we have been doing to give a concept, to give a meaning to that based on what the market does. But basically, we could say it's a new manner to securely transmit information from one party to the other within a distributed network, which means without the need of having anyone validating in anticipation. So we could transfer anything that has any value. And in terms of business, this could be a risk or an opportunity. It depends on what you do with this information. And if you're a lawyer, if you're a developer, you have now more opportunities to work with that also. When we talk about IoT and the interaction of blockchain with other technologies, all this potential becomes absolutely exponential. To finalize, in 1 minute that I have here, I would say that this matter is very much important for us as government, as citizens, and before all, as humans. So all this, even the concept of citizen will be more and more questioned. And part of what is coming is innovation, improvement of what we have, and part of it is also very disruptive, could be really revolutionary. Education is key, and this is why I focused on that. I believe that good information will lead to good transformation, and this is key. We should really focus on education still. We are mostly in a potential phase. So everything I'm talking about is not something that will happen from one day to the other. But when we see like Moore's law and all these effects of exponential transformation, it's really impossible to expect that to happen like 10 years in the future. It will very likely happen before, in my own view. And finally, and also reproducing what my friend Rodolfo said, we can all just wait and see things happening, or we can all take an active role into that, being part of this transformation, imposing what we need, what we think, so that it's more open also for our own interests. Thank you very much.
Wow. I got on the spot when the clock was to 0. But of course, we have time for questions. Questions to Rosine. Lua, where are you? You wanted to ask a question. But of course, Oscar is.
Thanks, first of all, for taking all the long way over here.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, we really appreciate. And since we are also trying to incubate like some academical approach here in Germany, I'm highly interested in what is the way you are going to introduce crypto and your blockchain academy approach to the people of Brazil, since our experience is like if you start with doing something substantial, with some substance, it's always difficult. And if you're talking about exchange rates, etc., and the more lighter the stuff gets, the more easy to introduce it to the people. And when I was in LATAM, also visiting Espacio Bitcoin in Buenos Aires, my idea was, or my impression was, that you are much more closer to the people and social aspects. And yeah, I would be highly interested in what is the trigger for getting crypto or bringing crypto to the people. This is my question, and I'm very looking forward also to joining your side event. Rosine will have a side event at 3 o'clock upstairs in our dojo. And yeah, I can highly recommend to visit that as well. So
thanks, Oscar. So first ingredient you need is this passion about this matter, because it's not easy to go and, as our friend has just said, go and talk to people and sometimes having no effect in front of governments and authorities. So having this passion is key, but also we have to make some choices. So from the beginning, we chose to be neutral and independent. And this costed a lot to us. It's very hard for us to be exponential in Brazil. We really have a small structure, but we work with these people that are very close from us, which are the technical people that we believe are most capable of providing good information. So this is the choice we made. Other people chose to have more exponential impact with less information, for example. We are running like 10 types of modules of all types. I would say that going online is also a good strategy. And this is what we're trying to do right now. It's not like the in-person course, but it's important too. It all depends on your purpose. Some people would just like to have a general idea. Some people would like to know more about investment. Some people would like to change their business. So understanding who you're targeting to. If it's just general information about how revolutionary this can be, then short content online should be enough.
More questions? Come.
If you'd like to get the...
Ah, yeah, okay.
Thanks. Oi, Lua.
Do Brasil.
Do Brasil. Sim, nascida. Prazer. Eu vou falar inglês para todo mundo.
Yes. Go ahead.
I was born in Brazil, but I'm from everywhere but, and I'm quite new to the field. I'm very interested. Maybe you could just give us a tidbit about what's happening in Brazil. I've been in Thailand since I've come to crypto, and it's just been a few weeks, basically.
Okay.
Right.
Economically and politically, we're going through a very serious crisis in Brazil.
Yes.
If you follow that.
Yes.
Our population is basically divided in two, I would say. There are people in the middle,
yes,
but they're not seen.
No.
So all the discussion goes from the so-called right and the so-called left.
The right is the one that is the grassroots.
Opposite. The so-called right. It's not even right in terms of history and politics.
Is that the people promoting the education?
They say so.
Right.
Okay, so I could talk to you even separately. There's a lot to be talked about it. But I would say that with respect to crypto and to blockchain, we have lots of people involved. We have lots of events. So it's like on fire in Brazil.
Yes.
The banks are cooperating among each other on that. Really. So I can tell you the details
They're
again
promoting
separately.
crypto in Brazil.
Sorry?
They're promoting crypto in Brazil.
I've been doing that for a few years now. Yes.
Okay, but working together with the parties, working together.
Yes. The banks are working among themselves. You have these
together
consortiums.
with crypto, with blockchain.
Yes. Yes.
Not against.
Both. I mean, when we talk about Bitcoin, this is I could say still a taboo, of course, but because this has the potential of disrupting their business.
Yes.
But they openly talk about blockchain and promote it.
And how to use the blockchain technology within, of course, there's so many applications, and so, of course, it's already happening in Brazil. Let's talk.
Yes.
I want to help you.
Yes.
Talk on the
to hear
break.
that. Thank
We
you
have a
very
break.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
Super. Maybe you can say a few words about your breakout session at 3, so
Sure.
many people go up on the roof and...
Sure. At 3 p.m., I'll be explaining more the basics, what is Bitcoin, what is blockchain, and what's happening in the corporate world. So why is it that organizations are looking forward to understanding blockchain? What they're effectively doing, what has been injected in this sector. So I'll be happy to have you there for 1 hour talk later.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Muito
guys.
obrigado. Okay.